Hello everyone, how's it going? Dr. Incompetent here, and let's play some Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup in this 2022 guide for a complete beginner to this, my favorite of all the roguelikes, the classic Dungeon Crawl. So, I'm going to show you how to play online. All you need to do is Google DCSS play online or Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup, and you'll come to the website that we are at here. The website address for playing online is crawl, C-R-A-W-L devils, DEVELZ.org, and you'll get to this screen right here. Now, you can play this game online like I'm going to show you, or with this link down below, you can download an offline client to play whenever you like. The only advantages of playing online are that you get scored and ranked against other players, and that you can pick up and resume your game wherever you find a browser, and you can log in. Additionally, it kind of like secures your game so that people know that the victory that you achieved with it is legitimate and hasn't been tampered with in any way. However you choose to do it, I'm going to be showing you the online version of the game right now. So you click this big green button, and it will just like automatically locate you to one of the several servers. I get this Midwestern one, and I'm logged in already as Dr. Incomp. This is my alternate account. I'll show you, if you're interested, in the description below, I have links to Let's Plays of this game for years now, for different versions of the game with many different character types, so you can see different species and backgrounds going through the game if you're curious about different combinations. But this is going to be us just starting a brand new character, and this guide is meant for people who have never played the game before, or people who have played but not for years, so you can see all of the changes that have been made, or people who are playing right now but are just, running into some difficulty. And that's the name of the game. It is a difficult game, but there's a lot that we can learn to get ourselves better at it. Another cool thing about playing online is, like, you see right down here, the leaderboard. You can see other people's games, like what level they are, what combination they are, what species and background they are, where they are, and you can then go into their game and watch if you want. But what we're going to do is go ahead and play on version 0.28, which as of July of 2022 is the current version. Now, one of the things that makes this game so sensational, and why I've loved it and played it for over 10 years, is that it's constantly updated. Below this 0.28, you can see that there are links for previous versions of the game if you want to play with older rule sets. And then above it, where it says trunk, it's updated daily with things that they're experimenting with and considering for the next release of the game, which would be 0.29 in this case. So you can play on whatever you want. I'm going to be showing you the latest version because it's stable, and that's what I like to play on. Now, before we get into it, I'm also going to show you one more thing, which is right here next to the latest version. It says Edit RC, okay? And that means to edit your config. I'm going to click on this, and it opens up a box like this, and I'm just going to type a few things into this. Okay, so I've gone ahead and filled this in with just 4 commands. There used to be a lot more that you would have to put into the game, but you don't need to do it anymore because things have changed. So these 4 configuration file alterations are things that I personally use and recommend. However, if you want to just dive into the game without doing this, it's not necessary, but all you have to do is just basically type what you see on the screen. So it is auto_fight_stop for this first command, and then you just say equals 80, okay? And so what this means is that when you're using auto fight, you will be unable to auto fight further if you dip below 80% health, okay? The game defaults to 50% health, which I do not find to be high enough. I would like to be at higher health before I stop before I keep auto fighting, so I put it at 80. That's very high for some people. You could mess around with that, put it at 70, whatever you want, but that is my recommendation. All right. Next thing is explore_auto_rest equals true. Okay. And so what this means is that if you push O to auto explore, and I'll tell you about all the key commands as we go, before you do so with this configuration, you will rest to full health. So this will prevent you from accidentally auto-exploring and wandering into trouble when you're not at full health. Explore_delay, okay, equals 20. What this means is that if you don't have this on, you will push auto-explore and you will like instantly teleport to the location. This slows it down slightly, so your character will move very, very fast, auto-exploring the level, but you will see what direction you're going, and it helps me orient myself better in the dungeon. It's not necessary. You don't have to do it. You could make it faster or slower, but that's what I like. And then show more equals false. I just do this for convenience. What this does is basically there's lots of times in the game where it will want to stop the text and will just say, hey, you have to push enter to proceed with the game because I want you to read all this stuff first. And I don't really care for that most of the time, so I do this so that it will just spit out the text at me, and then I can go back and read it if I want, without having to manually, push enter to feed the text even further. So these are the 4 options that I use. You could Google this, find out a whole bunch more on this, but I'm not going to get any deeper into this before we start playing the game, because I like to keep it pretty simple, and these are only 4 lines, and they will improve your quality. If you're going to do anything, the first 2. The second 2 are more like quality of life or just features that I like. The top 2 are helping you survive more readily. All right? So you click Save. Then what you're going to do is just click where it says DCSS 0.28 latest version like this. And it will load the game, and you'll see some random loading screen as it's doing that, and then you will come to this screen right here where it says please select your species. Okay, and so again, if you're new to the game, what this means is you get to choose what kind of creature you are. If you want to be just like a human, or you want to be a minotaur, or maybe you want to be an octopus, or, a mummy, or an ogre, or whatever. You can pick any of these, okay? And if you're returning to the game, you'll notice that there are many new species in the game, and some species have been taken out. Species that you are familiar with have also probably been reworked, or at least many of them have, okay? Now, they have done this in the recent years, and they've organized these starting species that you can choose based on difficulty, so of play. So basically, anything in this column is going to be regarded as a simple choice because these are very strong. These intermediate choices are like, they have some pros, but they have some minuses, and they're a little bit harder to play. And then the advanced are if you want an extreme challenge in the game. So before we go any further, let's talk about what this game is. Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup, as I mentioned before, is a classic roguelike. That means it is a single-player role-playing game that involves you controlling a figure through a procedurally generated dungeon, and it is permadeath, which means if you die, your game is over, you lose everything, and you're starting over with this screen that you see here. Nothing is carried over between runs. It is extremely brutal. You will see on Reddit, for example, there is an entire section that is called YASD, Yet Another Sad Death, of people telling all the stories of the horrible ways that they've died, luckily, unluckily, badly, foolishly, on and on and on, because, and you need to know this up front, last I checked, the win rate of people who are playing this game, okay, of every time people boot it up and they start a new character, the win rate is sub 1%. All right? That means that less than one time out of 100, people win. Now, there are some players who are extremely good, who have way better percentages than that, but just taking the entire population into account, that's what you're up against. So right away, you need to understand that you're going to die a lot in this game. It's just part of it, but don't feel bad because everybody is dying. I die in this game all the time, and I've played it for over 10 years, okay? That's just part of the learning experience. Now, when I say you lose everything, you do, but what you keep are the experiences and the knowledge of the game that you learn, and that will make you a better player as you go. The only way to get better at this game is to just die a whole bunch and practice and practice and practice and get yourself experience with how the game feels, understanding threats, when to run, when to fight, when to use a potion, and such. And we will talk through many of those decisions in the early game so that you can get your bearings, because I feel that lasting a little bit in the initial game and having good fundamentals are key to success in the game so that you can get further. This game is so hard, but what that means is when you do win, it feels fantastic. It's unlike anything else in gaming when you actually escape with the orb. Now, what does that mean? I said it's a single-player RPG, and by the way, single-player, you have one hero, but you can get allies and minions and things like that. But for the most part, it's a single-player game. The objective of this game is to go down into the dungeon, acquire 3 runes, use those runes to unlock the door into Zot's vault, go into Zot's special portion of the dungeon, and acquire his ultimate artifact, Zot's Orb of Power. You try to grab that orb, and then you try to run all the way back up to the first level of the dungeon and escape with that orb to win the game. If you can smash and grab that orb, you win. If that sounds easy, it is not. You are fighting through hordes of enemies that are extremely challenging, intelligent, and they will make your life misery, even if you're an experienced player. But there's a lot you can do to understand the ins and outs of what good decision-making is like in this game to increase your chances of survival and getting that orb, okay? Now, 3 runes is the basic victory. It's the minimum victory. And you might see online when you read about the game that people are going for extended victories, which means you're trying to get even more runes. There are 15 total runes that you can get, at least that I'm aware of as of this recording. And that would be a complete victory or a 15-rune win, which is what some people call it. Now, other people have different criteria, for what a complete victory is like. But that's one of the highest accomplishments that you can get. And that is an even bigger challenge once you are getting 3-rune victories more readily. But let's walk before we can crawl. You see what I did there? And dive in to what I recommend for a starting or returning player. And what I would say to you, pick something from this column. And quite honestly, what we're going to focus on is one of the most tried and true combinations in the game, which is a Minotaur as our species, okay? Minotaur is a great choice for a starting species because it is extremely strong, and it has very, very few drawbacks beside a low intelligence and not being able to wear a helmet. Those 2 small drawbacks are absolutely eclipsed by the Minotaur's aptitudes for skills and its strength and hit points. Now, that is my recommendation, but if you want further information, what you can do is you can use the % key and click List Aptitudes, okay? And from this screen, you will see an explanation of the aptitudes in the game, and every species strengths and weaknesses with these aptitudes. So, for example, Minotaur, which is right here, gets a +2 aptitude with armor, a +1 aptitude with dodging, -1 at stealth, you are not sneaky, all right, +2 for shields, Invocations and evocations are, you know, right in the middle there, -1. You get 10% more hit points than everyone else. You're bad with magic, and we're not going to be really doing magic. Your will save is average. And then when you get into this screen, this is where Minotaurs shine. They are good with basically every weapon. They're good with fighting, which gives you more hit points. They're good using just about every weapon that there is in the game. They're exceptional at certain weapons, okay? And they're good even with ranged weapons. Now, when you get into their spell casting, you'll see they have horrible minuses. And you're not going to be casting spells with this build, and you'll see why in a moment. But really, what this does for us when we start out in this complicated game is it simplifies things dramatically. We're going to just take out an entire section of the game, which is using magic for now. Now, magic is one of the best things about the game. It's super fun. The spells are really satisfying and interesting. But when you're starting out, it's nice to just limit what you have to consider, and Minotaur does that for you. Now, if you want to choose something else or just experiment, go for it. That's awesome. Do it. But I'm going to be showing you this particular build because it will be very, very effective at the beginning of the game. So we're going to click Minotaur, and then now we're going to come to this screen right here where it says, please select your background. Background is like your job, your profession, your class, okay? And you're coming into the dungeon with some kind of training, and this training gives you your starting equipment, your starting skills, and a sense of where you want to go. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't completely pivot and shift. That's one of the beautiful things about the game. This is where you start, but you can totally trend somewhere else if you like, all right? Now, the backgrounds are categorized by class type, so the warrior types, the religious types, the zealots, the casting type, the mages, the hybrid types, the warrior mages, and then there's these adventurers, which are like treasure seekers or inventors, things like that. And these are just absolutely kind of more advanced, fun, flavored things. But for us, we're going to be choosing a warrior because we're good at melee. Now, you could totally pick fighter if you want. Fighter is cool because you start with a shield right away, and you start with some heavier armor. There's nothing against fighter, but what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going with a berserker. The 4 classes that you see here, or the 4 backgrounds that are in the zealot category, have the benefit of starting with a god worshipped. Now, normally, if you don't pick one of these, you start with no religious affiliation, and you have to find an altar to devote yourself to a deity in the game and start to build up rapport or piety so that you could use abilities and gain benefits and powers from that god. If you pick one of these, you start with a god and some piety already built in. And we're going to pick Berserker. Berserker believes in Trog, which is a god that hates magic. You're actually, if you worship Trog, you are not allowed to use magic. So that's a huge drawback, but for us, we already saw that Minotaur is terrible with magic, and we weren't planning on it anyway, so we can lean into that, and the benefit of basically foregoing magic are the abilities of the Berserker, and first and foremost, that is the ability to go berserk in combat. It is a kind of button that you press when things are getting difficult or when you have a strong enemy ahead that will all but ensure victory against one foe that's reasonable for you and get you out of a lot of jams that would kill many other characters early in the game. Early in the game, there's going to be a lot of deaths that you have due to out-of-depth monsters, like monsters that are just way too hard for where you're encountering them in the dungeon, or certain named elite enemies that are just stronger than other enemies, or just unfortunate luck where you didn't find any armor or a good weapon or something, and you're just fighting an ogre who is really strong and wants to crush you, and you don't have any way to overpower them. Berserk just gives you that. So we're going to be a berserker. So once you pick Berserker, all right, we are a Minotaur Berserker. This is one of the easiest, strongest starting combinations you can pick, and what doing this will allow you to accomplish in the game is, like I said, get your feet wet. Like, you're going to get into the game. You're going to be able to actually play the game for a while, see a lot of it, make decisions, pick up gear, understand the controls, get a feel for things, and then from there you can branch out and just try other stuff, all right? But this is a great way to just learn the basics. Now, you get to choose what weapon you start with, and you could pick any of these, okay? You'll see in parentheses to the right of the short sword, the mace, the hand axe, are listed our character's aptitudes with that weapon. So we're really good with mace, hand axe, spear, and falcon, but we're not good unarmed or short sword. And when I say not good, I mean we're actually pretty good. We're just not as good. But we're not going to be picking any of those, okay? Now, I'm showing you the game, and this is the online client. If you're playing offline, it will look slightly different. I'm using the mouse to just kind of move around, but you'll see that there are letters associated with all of these. You can use only keyboard, and honestly, when I'm playing most of the time, I just use the keyboard, but that's because I have all of the key commands memorized. I've played for so long, but using the mouse is something that they've worked on integrating over the years, especially in the online version, and it's a nice little way just for me to highlight things for you. So do whichever you like. But both are viable. Now, you can also pick a random weapon if you just want to be like, hey, who cares? Or a recommended random choice where they make a choice based on your better stuff. But what we're going to do is make a decision between mace or axe. Those are the two strongest. For me, spear is cool because you get reach. Swords are generally poor in the game, although I understand for the next version that's coming out, they're trying to rework them and make them better. It's not that they're decidedly bad, it's just that compared to mace or axe, they are not as good. We're going to pick axe, okay? So the reason we're picking axe is not only do we get a +2 aptitude with axe, but axe has a special ability called cleave, which means that if you are facing multiple enemies in your field of combat, okay, so enemies that are adjacent to you, you hit your primary target and you hit the targets that are around you for some lesser damage. So you, like, let's say you hit your primary target for 70% damage, and then you hit all of the other targets for 30% damage. This allows you to just chop through hordes of weaker enemies and stay alive. It's just a great thing to have at your disposal for when you get overwhelmed, to just know that, hey, I'm going to go berserk. I'm going to start swinging an axe, and I'm basically just spinning around with my axe and hitting everything, all right? So that is the kind of advantage of the axe, and we're going to pick it. Then you're going to get into a screen that looks somewhat like this one, and I say somewhat like this one because, well, this game is procedural, as I mentioned before. And let me talk to you a little bit more about what that means. So procedural means it's randomized, but it's randomized following a set of instructions. So there are constraints to how your game will unfold. Your level 1 will look different than mine. This actual screen might look the same, but for the most part, it will play out differently than mine, but there are certain things that are fixed. So the dungeon, for example, is always 15 levels deep, the main dungeon. That's always the case. It's not randomized how deep the main dungeon is. But each floor is randomized. The locations of sub-branches and other places to go, like the Ecumenical Temple, where you can pick a god, or the Orcish Mines, or the Lair, the fixed branches of the dungeon are in a variable range as well. So, like, let's say for the Ecumenical Temple, it could be from levels 4 to 6, although that changes, and we'll look at that in a moment, but it's between a range of levels, and so you might find it like on level 6, you might find it on level 7, just depends. Now, what I'm looking at is what's called a fixed vault. It's like a kind of a pattern that they've developed with these transparent glass windows and walls and fountains and things, and you might actually see this. Like, this is a instance or a blueprint that can occur at different points within the game. And so even though it's randomized, sometimes you'll find like these little fixed elements that people have handcrafted, and then they have a chance of spawning within the dungeon. So that might look the same, but for the most part it's random, all right? And that's what gives the game the fun, the fact that it is randomized. Now, right away, there are some things that I want you to take into account as you look at the screen. The central bigger part of the screen is the play field, all right? My character is standing on the entrance into the dungeon. You can see kind of like sunlight peering out through the hole that comes into the dungeon, and that's going to be the only time we see that, unless we get strong enough to make it back. Your character sprite is updated based on what equipment you're wearing, so I kind of have some like animal hides on, like Tarzan, and I have an axe in my hand. I'm a minotaur with horns on my head. You can see that represented there. Below the main screen is a window that displays all of the text of the game, description, things that people are saying, combat information, etc. Important information the game is telling you comes in yellow, where it says like, welcome, everyone else who sought the Orb of Zot has failed, will you be different? So there's like some times when the game talks to you directly, and it will be in kind of that yellowish text right there. Trog says kill them all. It's in all red. That's text from our god. It's red because Trog is considered an evil god. And then there's some other description here that is very helpful that we want to look at. It says press question mark for a list of commands and other information. So if I press the question mark, you're going to see this key right here, and this is phenomenal, okay? This is like every single thing you could want to understand about the game is here. You can look through the manual. You can look through the commands. There's even a quick start guide. There's an FAQ. There's an amazing amount of assistance that you can get in this screen. Additionally, I recommend if you have any questions to ask, first of all, you can just type them in the comments below, and I'd love to help you out. But also, if you want real-time advice, you can come to the Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup Discord, and there's like people there all the time, including bots that can just give you some information and things if you're curious, and developers and experienced players who can help you out. There's a wiki for the game also, the Crawl Wiki, which has great information. Sometimes it's not always up to date, so you have to be careful about that. It might be for a previous version, but usually it's helpful. And also on our Discord, which is free to join, and love to chat with you there, we have a section for roguelikes where you can ask questions if you're looking for help. So there's no shortage of people looking to help you out. But what I recommend is pushing question mark to get to this screen, and then if you push question mark again, you get this, which displays a list of all of the key commands in the game. So I'll mention these as we go, but you can just always find them here, and there's all kinds of helpful things that you might not have understood otherwise that you'll see given, and you can use these as you're playing the game. There's usually more than one option for some interactions, and you'll see them listed with a slash between them if there's more than one. All right, so I'm going to push escape to get out of that. Now, in the upper right, you'll see in gold your name, okay, your species, and your kind of like deity. Also, next to your name, it says the Chopper. That is your title, and it's based on your highest skill. So I'm good with axes, so I'm a chopper. I have displayed here 1 pip out of 6 pips possible for piety. This is like how much favor I have with my god, and this is important as we start to understand what powers we can get based on how we're pleasing our god with our performance and what we're doing. Here's our health. I am at full health, and it's also represented visually by this green bar. Here's my magic. I have none, and it's going to be that way for quite some time. This is my AC, my armor class. I'm at 2. My EV is my evasion. I'm at 12. SH is kind of like your shield level, your ability to block. Okay. I'm experience level 1. I'm 0% of the way to the next level. I am making this much noise, which this is 0 noise, by the way. I am equipped in my hand with a hand axe, and I have no projectile weapons quivered to throw. I have 21 strength, which, hey, that's huge. We're a Minotaur. I have 4 intelligence, which is diabolically low. Okay, I can barely read, if that, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. We're here to just absolutely get blood for the blood god with our axe. I have 9 dexterity, which is reasonable, but we're not too worried about dexterity. I am in the main dungeon on level 1, and time is expressed in how many turns have passed since you've started, and it's 0.0 because I haven't done anything. Now, if I move 1 square to the right or the east, you'll see that time has gone up by 1, meaning it takes 1 turn for this character at this speed to walk. Other characters move faster. Some characters move slower than that, okay? So that's how much time within the game it takes for me to move 1 tile, all right? Now, below all of this character information here, you will see a mini-map of the game, and there is a white dot on this mini-map that is me, and the teal dot is a staircase up, and in this case, it is a staircase out. Now, if I were to go on that and then walk up, I could just quit the game if I just was terrified and wanted to lose instantly, but I don't. I'm going to go through. All right, now, that's this screen, which you're going to be spending a lot of time with, and we will discuss more of it as it evolves. I'm going to now push I to bring up my inventory, and you can see I come into the dungeon with only 2 things. This animal skin and my hand axe, and that's it. So when you are a berserker, you start with terrible armor, and that's one of the drawbacks of it, but quickly we're going to find better armor to replace that, so let's not be too concerned, okay? I am now going to just give you some explanation of some other screens of interest for you as you move around. I'm going to push Shift 5, okay? And this brings up a pretty good reflection of our character, where you can see all of our primary stats listed up here in brown. And you can see actually how much game time has passed, minutes and seconds of this character's life. You can see in this column where it starts off with hand axe, everything that I'm equipped with in every slot. And then if I don't have something in that slot, you can see it's grayed out, but it will tell you what it's supposed to be. Like, I don't have a cloak or gloves. Helmet restricted means that's where my helmet would go, but because I have horns, I can't wear every type of helmet. In fact, I can only wear hats, basically. Now, to the left of this, you'll see all of my resistances, and these become increasingly important as you get further in the game, because enemies will start doing abilities that do, I don't know, fire damage, or cold damage, or negative energy, or poison you, or electrocute you, or corrode your armor, or mind control you, on and on and on. And so you'll need resistances here, and R fire means resist fire, and you can get protection from 1 up to 3 pips that reduces incoming fire damage based on how many of these you have filled in, and the returns are diminishing, okay? Generally, it's advised to try to get 1 pip in as many of these as you can, and then 2 pips for example, if you're trying to beat the game and fight orbs of fires, is, 2 pips on resist fire is recommended, but not 100% necessary. Below that, you'll see my hit point regeneration and my magic point regeneration, which is described based on how much I get back each turn. And then these are telling you, like, can I see invisible? Do I have faith, which means this is a bonus I would get on an item that gives me more piety from my god? Do I have spirit shield, which means when I get hit, I would take the damage from my mana pool and my health pool? Do I reflect incoming damage, incoming ranged attacks. Do I have harm on, which means I do more damage but I take more damage? And do I have rampage, which is an ability that basically means like I charge at people and can knock them backward. Then it tells you down here any status effects you have, and then these are like kind of mutations or physical features of your character that are reflected in the game. So I have horns. I have horns level 2, which means I can't wear a helmet, but I can damage people with my horns by headbutting them. I can give them a retaliatory headbutt, and that's hilarious. All right, I'm going to push escape to get out of that. And that's a good look at some of the screens that you're going to need to know for checking on your character